Good morning. So yet again, I've got another message from Our Lady for this Easter week. A very short message this time. My children, I desire you to meditate on how willingly Jesus went into his passion and how I helped him and united my sufferings with him. Think about this when you suffer injustices, that Jesus willingly suffered injustice for you and for your salvation. If you are willing to suffer injustices for the sake of others, such as losing a job or being rejected or even martyred, you will indeed have perfect joy in this world. Well, a very short message in a way, and yet equally profound. So I suppose the first thing Our Lady is getting us to reflect on is that Jesus knew that he was going to be crucified. Now, how did he know? Well, because Jesus was God, the Holy Spirit revealed enormous amounts of things to him. And so often, for example, he would know in advance, like say, he knew when Lazarus was dead, as though we're going to go to wake Lazarus up. So the Holy Spirit showed him things. So he knew that Judas was going to betray him that night, and he knew when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane praying, he knew that his game was up, if you like. He knew that Friday was the day of his crucifixion. So he knew what was in store. Now, it's not always like that with us. We don't necessarily know. So sometimes injustices happen to us and we've no clue. You go to work, something happens, you get this email out of the blue, or someone complains about you and you're totally surprised. And so when those type of injustices happen, well, obviously we have to do our best to offer them to Jesus with Our Lady. But there's also another type of injustice that can happen, which is Our Lady telling us, as the injustice that we know will happen. So we don't need a prophetic word, but suppose, for example, you're with a particular group of people and you know that if you talk about faith, you know that they won't like it. You know, for example, perhaps in a work situation, if you bring up your opinions, that you'll be ridiculed. Maybe you've already had a warning and you've been told that if you do that again or talk about your faith again, that you're out. Similarly, you could be in a certain country that's very anti-Christian, and if you talk about your faith, then there are going to be consequences. And so there are certain situations where we know that if we open our mouths, we will get into trouble. I do a lot of evangelization, for example, in the LGBT world. So there, talking about Jesus can be tricky. It can be equally tricky talking about LGBT issues in the Catholic Church. And so I know before I do it that I'm in for a crucifixion before, during and after from some people. Well, obviously the rewards as well of touching other people's hearts and bringing the love of Jesus to others. And so Our Lady is saying that if we are willing to suffer injustices for the sake of others, that's how we will have perfect joy in this world. So in other words, if we're willing to surrender our entire lives to God. So you see, it's easy for me to say, or you to say, Jesus, I give you my whole life today and I just want to love you. That's easy. But if Jesus asks us to do something, like he says, today I want you to go and witness to these people, or today I want you to explain to your boss or explain about a situation of injustice that's happening, to stand up for a certain group of people or whatever. And if you say, oh, well, yeah, but if I do that, I'm going to get into trouble. If I do that, there's going to be consequences for me. Say, for example, you're a doctor and it's to do with ethical issues and you decide that you don't want to carry out such and such a procedure. Oh, yeah, but if I refuse to do that, then I'm not going to get the promotion. Same, maybe you're a solicitor or you're a barrister or something. You've been asked to do something and you say, oh, well, I don't want to do that, but on the other hand, if I stand up for my faith, I might get fired. And so Jesus is saying, well, we will have perfect peace if we are able to perfectly surrender all these areas to Jesus, to God, and basically we are willing to bear the consequences when necessary. So in other words, he's not saying that we should go out every single day and martyr ourselves and throw ourselves sort of under the train, so to speak. But he's saying that there are going to be certain times when the Holy Spirit is going to ask us to speak up. is going to ask us to speak out. There will be consequences. We might not be crucified like Jesus was, but we might be crucified as in a white martyrdom. There might be severe consequences. And yet, when God asks us to do that, he wants us to be willing and not afraid. And if we have that perfect attitude of surrender, then that is how we will have perfect peace in our hearts, because we know that we are free, to do God's will, whatever it takes. So that obviously is a grace. So let us today meditate on that and meditate that Jesus entered freely into his passion, knowing what was going to happen, knowing that he was going to get crucified, knowing that that was going to happen. And yet he had this perfect peace because he knew he was doing the Father's will, he knew he would resurrect, and he knew that it was with a purpose, and the purpose was love. So if we meditate on that, then that will give us the strength, the freedom, the perseverance, the surrender to basically totally and utterly abandon our lives to Jesus and to be free to follow Jesus, whatever it takes. And that, of course, is the summit of inner freedom, is the summit of inner peace that Jesus wants for us all and Our Lady wants for us all. But as I said, it can only happen from grace, and those graces come from prayer, and especially praying and thinking about how Jesus freely gave himself in love for us, for humanity. So on that note, thank you for watching, and God bless you, and may the Holy Spirit fill you, fill me as well, with more of these graces of freedom, of perseverance, of love, and of total and utter surrender. And may all fears in our hearts, all blockages be obliterated, be destroyed, so that we are free to follow Jesus, whatever he wants. Thanks for watching again.